Okay, so this is a test to see if I'll ever do this again. Essentially, I'm working on hacking Marvelous for the Super Famicom, and I've got a certain area of the game that I'm working on. It's called the Chore List. I call it the Chore List. Essentially, in the game, the old woman gives you a list of chores to do around the room, and as you complete them, it kind of scratches out what chore has been completed. Now there are different tile indexes for different states of the list. So right now, this one, and I have a few of them that I've made different changes to just because I was trying to figure out what does what. But essentially what I'm trying to do is figure out in the tile index which index points to which tile, and in the actual tile definition it defines a 16 by 16 pixel area in which to display. So probably not explaining that very well, but hopefully you'll see as I go. Either that or I'll just never do this again, because I suck at explaining these things anyways. Makes sense in my head, but I am not very good at describing things. So I have on the other screen, I'm just gonna keep some things off to the side. This is a notepad where I keep the locations of relevant data, such as the actual tile map. It's more of just a definition of what a tile is, and there are tiles defined in this area, and then there's the tile index, and this is actually a couple bytes off from the start of the tile index for this particular case. But I've been able to modify all the tiles in this area, and I just have to modify the actual tile map or the tile definition area to display the tiles that I want to display. Okay, I'm going to stop talking now because I don't even know if I'm repeating myself, so here we go. First thing I'm going to do, I've got a program that I wrote that rebuilds Marvelous based on some data in an XML file. Essentially, I can have different pieces of data in different files, and it just compiles it into the final ROM file, or the final binary file. It just essentially, it can either compress whatever's in this file and then insert it at a certain offset within the ROM. There's other modes where I can build script files. Right now I have the script file pre-built and it's inserting at offset. That offset, like 300,000. These are all in hexadecimal number format, so. And I'm eating at the same time, so this will be interesting. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to actually move this down to my taskbar because I'm going to be rebuilding this pretty often. So I'm going to rebuild it, and that'll override all of the changes that I made that made it all funky looking. Well, it'll still look funky because I changed the actual tiles and it compresses this file, the Chore List bin file, and stores it within the ROM. So close that. What's I doing? Okay. So I rebuilt it. Pops out this file. I know it's not October anymore, but that's just how I have it naming right now. I have a snapshot that loads right where it needs to be. Okay. And so this is the tile map, pretty much untouched from the original. If I were to replace this file with the original tiles that were in the Japanese version, then it would actually look like close to correct. But since I moved a lot of things around, I'm gonna have to account for that. I usually do it manually within the Hex editor. I use Hex Workshop most of the time. So first thing that I'll do is just go to the tile index, and I'm going to try and figure out all of the tiles that are defined. So let's go to here, and I believe there's a couple of tiles before that. So I think it's the tile index starts here. Not exactly sure where it ends, but probably somewhere around here. So first thing that I'm going to do is just make some changes to this. I won't be changing the first byte of the tile. So this defines one tile, this defines another tile, or it points to a specific tile. So let's go through and see what those mean. How about I change these first two to something like 20. Save it. And reload, open it. Okay. So I don't know if you noticed that, but this tile here, and I hope you can see my mouse cursor, this tile here and this tile here, they're both 16 by 16 tiles, but that would be 20. So that's the tile that is defined for 20 in hexadecimal. So I don't know, let's just put a bunch in a row and see what we've got. I'll do 0, 0, 1, 2, 3. And if you're wondering how I was able to find the tile index, that was through using a debugger. Essentially, I looked, I had a watch in VRAM for an area, well, I guess I had a breakpoint defined for an area in VRAM that I knew was going to be containing some of this information. And don't ask me how I figured that part out. That's a topic for another time. But essentially, this is slightly more advanced, even though I'm sure there are other people who are much better at this, that have more streamlined ways of changing tile maps and tile indexes. So, and this may not apply to all games either. This happens to just be the way that Marvelous handles certain with certain graphics. Just a way that it handles certain graphic displays. Don't listen to me. Okay, so I'm going to save that, reload it. Of course, I keep the other one loaded, just so I can get an idea of what was changed. So there's quite a bit here, and it looks like a lot of the tiles that are defined need to be changed, because there's not really any good data that's showing up there, or the graphics aren't arranged in a way that is going to work for us. So this one was before, this one is after that change that we just made, and looks like we actually changed most of the tiles. You'll notice when we change the tiles in the map, this particular map, it's going top to bottom, left to right, so it goes this tile, this tile, this tile, this tile, this, and then it starts over at the top and goes down, down, down. And so yeah, I'm just gonna close these. And we'll try some more tiles, although I don't have much hope for it. Actually, maybe instead I'll just figure out if I can, I'll see if I can figure out which index is where in the tile map. So 0, 0, 0, 1. Hopefully they're defined in order. Let me bring that up again. And hopefully we can see something that when we look at the actual graphics and how the tile map is defined and how the index is defined, hopefully we'll be able to start seeing, okay, the tile at this index comes up with a certain 4 tiles. I'm going to change this a little bit more so that I get something until I find a tile that is easier to figure out where it is in the actual tile area. I don't know how to explain that. Okay. So I'll just start with 10. Okay, now hopefully we'll get something a little bit easier to look at. Okay. We might be able to figure this out. I'm actually wondering if I should just modify this so that it is numbered, like the graphics actually show numbers there, so I can figure out what it's pointing to. That's not actually too bad. I should be able to figure that out, because those first 2 tiles right there, it's right here. I don't know if you can see what I'm selecting there, but it's these 2 8x8 tiles, and that's in the top part of the defined tile. And then the other 2, that looks like it's this tile, just twice. And again, I can't tell if you're going to be able to see what I'm selecting there. This one, the one that I just pulled out. Seems like it's that one twice. So now let's look at that. So the first tile that I changed was I think 20? Was it 20? I forget. But okay, so 20 in the index, that tile is defined as these 4 tiles. These 4 8x8 tiles. And I believe the 2 on the bottom would each be defined as 11 in the actual tile map. I'm just gonna stop talking because I doubt anybody will even be able to understand why I'm saying what I'm saying. So, silence for me. I think it's 5411. There's a 5455. But they usually are kind of interwoven together. This one, but I wouldn't expect to see 54 and 55 together like that. I would want to see a tile in between. So I'm going to come up a bit and then search for 4 E, don't know, 1 E, 5. Did it find anything? Did not find anything. Well, maybe I'm wrong. Me out of where I was. What I want is something that has 11 after that. Or could it be 22? That doesn't look right. It's gotta be one of those. I guess I'll try changing. It's more likely one in this area. So let's try changing that to something else, like just 254s, just so it's easy to find later. Now let's reload that. Okay, so that was not the tile. doesn't either. That's assuming that I'm numbering the tiles correctly. I guess I could just change my tiles, change a bunch of them until I change the one that is on the screen. So when I did the when I was looking through the when I was looking at the debugger to see what memory locations it was looking for, this is one of the locations that popped up, and I don't know if it's just one of the tiles, but it seemed like it was indexed at this location. Pulling tiles specifically for this screen here. So I guess I'll try changing a bunch of these, a couple at a time, until I actually change one that's being displayed on the screen. So I'll just do 22s. Don't think either of those is being displayed right now. We'll just keep going. Okay. Hopefully that makes a difference. Actually shows a different tile. Nope. No such luck. Come up here a little bit more and change a few more of these. So change 20. Alright, so now they're all essentially going to be showing 4 of the same tile. All of the tile definitions in that area. So we'll see if our index is pointing to any of those. And it doesn't look like it. at this point it might be helpful to rebuild and reset. So I went ahead and rebuilt it. Now let's go back to our tile map area. So now the tile index is reset. So I'm going to go ahead and make changes to the tile map or the tile definition area. Probably using the wrong terminology, but that's what you get. Oops. Make a bunch of 22s. And we'll see if that makes things display weird. Okay. Now let's change those to something else. 55s. Okay, I did something different, but only for one tile. That's the one right in the middle there. I have to go into the tile index and figure out how that one's defined. And I may eventually be able to figure out exactly where this tile definition's at and be able to point at different actual tiles in that tile definition. Okay, so I guess before going on, maybe I should try and figure out exactly which tile that is. And if this is matching up to this, the index for this that I would expect, you know, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, A, B, C, D, E, F. And my count was off, but essentially that's 0, 0 to 0F on this first row, and then you go 1 to 1F, 2 to 2F, 3 to 3F, 4 to 4F, 5 to 5F. So since we set a bunch of these tile definitions to 5, 5, what I would expect is 5, 0, 5, 1, 5, 2, 5, 3, 5, 4, 5, 5. So this tile specifically, part of the S and the T, are probably what we're seeing there, and that looks like that is correct. So let's see here. I'm still trying to eat. Now I've got a cat attacking me. Good dinner. Okay, I'm going to pause this for now for a moment. can't remember the hotkey. Okay. So, continuing on. So since I have 55 defined tile 55, which is part of the S and the T, in 4 of the 8x8 sections of the 16 by 16 tile, what I could do, and each tile is defined as, this is top left, bottom left, top right, bottom right. So each tile is defined like that. So if I wanted to, say, make it point to like this number 1 area and part of the C right here, then I would do 0, 1, 1, 1, 0, 2, 1, 2. So I'll do that. 1, 1, 1, 0, 2, 2, 2. And I doubt it'll be the first tile in the tile map that goes to that index, but we'll test that. And I'll save it and see how it looks. And if nothing changes, then it wasn't that tile. Okay, so it wasn't that tile. So I'll change the next tile to be exactly like that. So 0, 1, 11, 2, 22. Wait, 22. Should be 12. That would have looked funky anyway. Just my brain's all mushy. Okay, so I think we found it, but it's defining the tile different than I had expected. Oh, looks like we might have started in the middle of a tile. So it's like I'm off about 32 bytes, or no, 4 bytes. Anyway, don't listen to me, just watch. So that still doesn't look right to me. What is that pointing at? So 0, 1. Looks like part of the number 1. Looks like there's one tile here that's yeah, that looks fine, but yeah, okay. So I'm obviously thinking about this wrong. So it should be top left, top right, bottom left, bottom right, how it's defining the tile. It would help if I understood that. Okay, so should be more like 0, 1, 0, 2, 11, 12. Hopefully. Okay. And as you can see, it looks like that tile is showing the way that we defined it. Now we just have to find what index it's pointing at, and then we should be able to determine the indexes of all the tiles defined around this tile. But this tile specifically is right here. One tile. So that's the top left, top right, bottom left, bottom right of a single tile that is indexed elsewhere. Okay, so let's go to that index. Actually, let's make a note of exactly where that's at. And this is just for my reference. I believe that would be 1, 2. So it should be at the F index, or the 10th tile in the index. But okay, let's just go there. tile in the index. Figure out where the index starts again. I think it starts 2 up here. So where we have 1A. Let's make this one 1A so I can verify that's where the actual index is starting. Okay. So yeah. So this 16 by 16 section is 1A. This one is 1A as well, as defined in our tile index. So that tile is indexed as 1A. I don't know if I'm making this harder or easier on people. Or if I'll even post this ever. So that's the first one, second one. So I'm thinking 18. Is the tile that's right in that center area. So if so, I'm going to change the first 2 to 18 as well, just to make sure that's what that is pointing to. And I'm probably off. I don't know what tile that is that it's pointing to. I think I'm 1 too many. Or 2 too many. Yeah. So let's see where 18 is defined here. I think it's BA, possibly. It's just a lot of trial and error, at least for me anyway, and that is way wrong. Oh, that's because BA here was BA01. I think. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, okay. So I think we found that tile, and it is BA01 is that tile that we changed how it looks. Hooray. No. Hopefully someone watching this could see why that's so time consuming. And it could just be the way that I do it. There's probably a billion ways that you could go about figuring this out. I just do trial and error. So BA01 is that 16 by 16 tile, which we defined here. This is where the definition's at. So it was 01, 02, 11, 12. So if we wanted to, and we were sure that these tiles weren't being used by anything else, which I'm pretty unsure, that I could just modify this and go from there. But essentially that is the tile that's defined as crap, what was it? BA01. So this right here is the tile definition, and it's indexed as BA01. 01 I think is the bank. I don't know if that's the right term for it, but essentially it's just the it's a second level index. So all of the 01s probably happen before the other definitions of the other tiles. Or they might not, but we'll see. So now it's going to be a really boring part, so I'm going to pause. I'm just going to create, well, I'm going to look at the tile map for all the tiles that are on the bottom background layer, and then try to recreate that in these few tiles that are here. And yeah, we'll go from there. Okay, quick update. So I figured out exactly where the tile definitions are for that one section, and essentially cut them out of the main ROM and put them in their own little file. It makes it a little bit easier to make changes and build it all into the final ROM. So this is my my tile definitions that are used throughout, and here is the tile indexes. So these indexes point to the tile definitions, and we've got as far as tiles defined, only defined up to here, but I filled in the rest of the data with the actual index number for each section. So this is index 12, 13, 14, so on. So when I actually do define these tiles, then I know what to put them, or how they'll be indexed. So I'll give you a quick example. This is essentially, I've filled in the first row. Since the first row isn't crossed out yet, it's only the middle row in this particular instance that's going to have a cross out section. But I was able to, for some reason, instead of just replacing the one section of the screen that actually has the crossed out information, the game is essentially drawing this first line twice. I don't know if that's the correct way to say that, but the tile map is defined twice, as is this third line. This second line is technically defined at least twice, but it looks like there's a different tile index for each time the screen is different. So I'm going to assume that there's at least 3 or 4 more tile indexes for the different cases of, you know, if the first 2 are crossed off and the last one's not crossed off, or the last 2 are crossed off, the top one's not crossed off, or the top one's crossed off, nothing else is crossed off. It appears to be handling each separate case with its own tile index. That's just how it looks so far. It may reuse some of that information. Not sure yet, but I'm gonna get this first one where I've been testing it with the middle chore item is supposed to be crossed out here. So I'll finish that piece and then move on to the next part. Welcome back. Okay, so where I left off, I had finished doing the tile map and the indexing for up to the second line here. I've now finished creating tiles and mapping to those tiles. I've used this many tiles so far, and about this much of the index is used for displaying this middle section of the screen. So I've gone ahead and saved it. Go ahead and build it, and let's run our fresh build. See what it looks like. Alright, so it looks pretty good. So the only thing that's been completed so far is patching the floor. We haven't cleaned the windows or moved the table, so that's why that's the only thing that's marked out. But seems like I'm gonna have to do this a few more times, and that took quite a while, and I'm pretty tired at this point. but I guess I'll keep at it, and no point showing the rest here, but just thought I'd show you what I do to make some of these modifications. This is one of the more complicated ones, but alright, hope you learned something. If not, then I guess whatever. Okay, thought I'd do a final update. I ended up staying up nearly all night, but it didn't actually take me all that much longer to finish indexing everything for all of the different cases, and I'll show you what that means in a second. So just wanted to show you this again. This is the tile definitions, only used up to there, so still had enough for like 5 more tiles potentially that I could use in the chore list scenario. Didn't end up using that, but that's okay. But I finally got through all of the chore lists in tile indexes. There ended up being 5 of them. One of them isn't used at all, but there is, each section is about 1 E hex in length. Hope I don't say too much, but okay. So, and they ended up being right after each other. So they're all in order, and I ended up just copying the first one, making little changes to it for the rest of them, so it's a lot easier to do the rest of them. And I guess I'll show you what it looks like now that it's built. I've got a save state for all the different scenarios, or yeah, I guess you could call it scenarios. Different combinations of chores done. So in this one I've only got the floor patched, so you talk to her and only the floor is patched. Okay, there's another state. This one, only the windows are clean. Okay. Here's a third one where the windows are clean and the floor is patched. And then where the floor is patched, the table is moved. These are the only combinations possible. And the 5th combination, which is technically possible but not used in the game, is, yeah, a tile index exists for it, but it does not use it. So there you have it. Although it's impossible to do it. It's impossible to clean the windows and move the table to the west wall without patching the floor. So even though an index exists for it, you know, you technically can't do it. And I didn't actually complete that tile index because it's not used. So there you have it. That adventure is over and nearly done with Marvelous. Been working on this pretty much all year. Started in April. It's now November. Have 2 major things to finish. One of them I might not actually finish by the end of the year. The other one I definitely will. I still need to translate and hack the kernel's permission slip. It's something near the end of the game, the very last chapter. But everything else, all of the graphics, signs, the text in the game is finished. The only other thing that I want to do is do the variable width font, but I keep going back and forth whether or not I really want to release it without that. I think it looks okay without having the variable width font. It would look great if it did have it, but right now it's formatted to look okay without it. So who knows, maybe I'll release it before then and then later on. But there you have it, nearly done, and I'm rambling, so hope this was interesting, and good day.